Hey everyone, welcome in to another daily editorial here on the KE Report. Chatting with Dave Erfle, going to be focusing again on the precious metals and bit of a correction that we are seeing again heading into the Fed meeting tomorrow with gold down about $50, silver's down right around $1. We're actually seeing weakness in almost every sector out there with the broad averages lower, the rest of the commodities lower. But again, the focus on the precious metals. Dave is the editor of the Junior Miner Junky newsletter, which I will link to below. Now, Dave, looking at this correction, it's I guess, bigger number on the screen when you see gold down over 2%, silver down 3.5%, GDX, GDXJ down over 4%. Fact of the matter is, though, the prices are still generally higher. They haven't broken any support. So what are you seeing in a day like today where it's, I believe, another correction, but again, no support being broken right now?
Yeah, this is, some profit taking ahead of the Fed, just in case they say something that the market doesn't like. You've had the 3250 and the GDX is strong support. You've had two consecutive bullish weekly hammers off that level. And then the GDXJ, it's the 40 level. You had two consecutive weekly bullish hammers. So it's consolidating, and a high consolidation, became overbought. So it's working off that overbought by trading sideways a bit, while the gold price is doing the same thing. It's consolidating in $150 range between the 2450 all-time high it reached a couple weeks ago and the low of 2300 that it's retesting again today. So that's really healthy, especially when you consider the fact that the ceasefire in Gaza. Honestly, I thought the ceasefire lasting longer would take the gold price all the way down to at least 2200. So because I thought there was more of a war premium in the gold price, but that's not the case. It's holding 2300. So that's nice to see as we go into this Fed meeting. There's always a lot of volatility around that.
If we do break that 2300 in gold, though, you do assume that it would go back and test that 2200 level, right?
Well, I think that's a possibility. The 50-day moving average is rising towards that 2200 level. I think it's right around there now. It's going up pretty quickly. So by the time the Fed speaks, it's going to be closer to 2220. I think. Yeah, it's at 2222 right now. So by the time the Fed speaks, it's going to probably be around 2235, right around there. So the gold price coming down to test that would be healthy and normal. So I wouldn't be surprised to see that if the Fed says something that gold doesn't like.
Now, what about silver? Silver down about $1 today, but it's still hanging out above $26 an ounce, which is, look, generally higher than that trading range it was in, where 25 and change seemed to be that sticking point for well over a year. Is it important for silver to hold about that 25 and change level?
Yeah, silver's 50-day moving average is rising pretty sharply too, and it's about 2560. It'll probably be around 2575 by the time the Fed opens its mouth. So there's an open upside gap at 26, because that 26 level was really strong resistance for a couple of years, and it gapped up there and ran quickly to almost 30. So I wouldn't be surprised for it to come down and fill that gap after this looks like this bear flag is breaking down. So yeah, I wouldn't be surprised to see that either.
Now, what about the stocks too? We look at something like GDX, and it's another down day here, but again, timed almost perfectly with the beginning of last week where it bounced back quickly. GDX seems to have set up support right around that 32 and change level, which was resistance. Is that the other level that we're looking at for GDX at 32 range?
Yeah, that 32, 3250, that was strong resistance going back a couple of years, and now it's trying to become strong support. On the GDXJ, that level is 40. So, like I said, we've had two strong weekly hammers from that level, back to back weekly hammers. So, it depends on how the market reacts to what the Fed has to say here. We could see it come down to test and have another weekly hammer off that low. I mean, they're working off overbought levels too. The RSI, the daily RSI is remaining above 50. It's about 53 right now, as it corrects down lower. So I think I wouldn't be surprised to see that level hold, but it could come down below also, and there's more support at 31. on GDX. So it's going to be interesting, as it always is around the Fed speak.
Oh yeah, it is Fed speak, but bigger picture concept here with GDX really at the upper part of its range, and this range that's been in place for pretty much 2 years. Do you want to see it simply just sideways consolidate around here for a prolonged period of time to potentially set up a higher level, or is there some other chart pattern formation that you would like to see here that maintains this more bullish outlook?
Yeah, I'd like to see those levels 32.50 and 40 maintain. And, Fed speak might even be a non-issue. A bigger issue might be the employment report, right? That comes out Friday, because we're starting to see major signs of stagflation. We saw the very disappointing GDP growth rate is only 1.6 after being 3.4% Q4, and at the same time, inflation's not only remaining sticky, but it's rising again. So those are two major components for stagflation. Of course, the third major component is a weak job market. Even though the last month's jobs report was strong, it was U.S. government hiring that created most of the jobs, and the private sector continues to show weaker growth, and there's been a lot of layoffs. So I wouldn't be surprised to see a weaker jobs report on Friday, and that could have a stronger effect on not only the gold price, but on the stock market as well.
So, are you concerned at all if the stock market sells off, which it did start this month weak, and then it started to come back, took about 50% of those losses from the first couple of weeks off the table, might be rolling over again? Do you worry that weakness in the U.S. markets bleeds into the precious metal stocks?
Well, last week that wasn't the case, was it? We had this gold price down a couple of percent, and we had the stock show strong relative strength to the gold price and continuing to show strong relative strength to the stock market as Newmont's blowout quarter led the S&P leaderboard on Thursday. It was up 12.5% on Thursday. A lot of people don't realize that Newmont is not only the largest gold company by far now, but it is also the only gold stock on the S&P 500. So if you start to see Newmont continuing to outperform the S&P 500, that's going to finally bring some more Western investors into gold stocks. And then followed by Newmont, we had now the number 2 gold miner is not Barrick anymore. It's now Agnico. They also had a blowout quarter. So that's showing that's having the gold stock start to outperform the stock market. So if we do have a big hit to the stock market tomorrow, we might not see the big hit in gold stocks if gold is affected positively by what the Fed has to say.
Yeah, some of those earnings from the majors were good and encouraging to see the higher volume trades and the up moves we saw. Now just let's hope that they don't give them all back because they have trended lower after some of those reports. Dave, what does this mean for this rotation trade, though? Because it is what we've seen within the markets is money rotating from one sector to the other. Seems like for the last 2 months now, it's been the commodities turn. Do you get worried that this rotation trade could end, or is it just getting started in your eyes?
Yeah, I think it's just getting started. It's not a coincidence that the gold price had a technical breakout on the last day of Q1 at the same time the stock market hit its high. So the stock market has rolled over at the same time the gold price has had a technical breakout, and it had a $450 move to the upside in 2.5 months. That $450 move to the upside in such a short period of time is being consolidated now as it needs to be, and it's a healthy consolidation. It's consolidating, like I said, in the $150 range after moving up so far so fast. And if you look at the S&P 500, it lost its 50-day moving average for the first time since early November of last year. It went up 22% from November. So after it lost its 50-day moving average, it came down pretty far below it, and now it's bounced back, and it's back tested that 50-day moving average. It started to roll over again. So it's going to be very important what happens this week in reaction to not only Fed speak, but the jobs report that follows it on Friday.
What about within your portfolio? You don't need to comment on individual companies, but we have seen more news. There's been more financing news, which I think has been a bit of a mixed bag. Some companies raising money that they need, other companies not being able to close financings in that quick time period that you like to see. We have gotten some more news on work programs for this year, but we're practically in May. This is very late. We've seen limited drill programs too. So what are you watching out for news flow wise from either companies in your portfolio, companies that you're watching that you think would be positive news for investors and for the stock?
Yeah, I'd like to see more strategic financings. We've seen a couple. I'd like to see more. That's always a positive sign in the market when you start to see strategic financings from these majors and mid tiers taking a chunk of these companies, and that's always a positive thing. As far as my portfolio, I've had several continue to outperform and bifurcate, and then I've had several haven't really done much and haven't really moved very much, but have started uptrends. But you'd like to see more M&A. We're starting to see that. That's good. But you really want to see that financing window open wider. Sure, it's opened a little bit. You started to see some quality projects get some big financings, but a lot of them are still really small and they don't really move the needle that much. So we'd really like to see that financing window open wider.
Yeah, so true. We would. And the companies obviously want that as well. Dave, one final question, and it's something that I've heard from some investors that they're looking at smaller miners, especially silver miners, now that the price moved up into the high 20s, even challenged that $30 level, where some of these miners can become profitable, which is a big change from these mines they've been running that just kept losing money year after year after year. Do you get excited about these kind of moves? Do you think there's an investment angle here if silver can stay high where these small miners can actually start generating some cash flow and potentially really move their stock?
Well, not really, because I'm in this space for takeovers, for big upside gains and multi-baggers. And those come from companies that are de-risking large projects that become attractive to majors. They take a strategic investment, and then we have another major maybe take a strategic investment, and that gets some competition inside the stock. And maybe if there is an ultimate takeover offer, there might be a bidding war. So I'm still attracted to projects that look attractive to majors and mid tiers. I'm not really interested in small companies with small projects that don't look attractive to these larger companies that need to replace their ounces.
Okay. Hey, Dave, thank you very much for addressing that as well. Always great chatting with you. There's a bit more to talk about today, although it's due to a correction. But again, no major support has been broken here. This very well could be a consolidation move. But again, only time will tell. Some of these stocks are fading, so could be an opportunity if this bull market continues to have another entry point, because some of the stocks, while they have moved, still could have a lot of upside here, but again, very, very stock dependent. Dave, thank you again. And everybody, you want to follow along with Dave, visit the Junior Miner Junky website, which I will link to below. Dave, we'll chat next week. Have a great rest of your week there, buddy.
You too, Corey. Thanks again.